Hello and welcome to Breaking into the Media Industry Pathways, Realities, and How to Stand Out. This lecture I've called The Real Story. Hello, my name is Rajram and I'm a freelance producer and I've been in the business for over 25 years and I've worked for all the major broadcasters including BBC, ITV, Channel 4, Channel 5, Sky and all the major independent companies. I've also been a screen skills mentor where I've supported young people who are trying to make their way into the business and giving them an industry insight and honest guidance about what it takes to build a career in the media. I've given them advice about how to get into the different pathways and how to get some idea of what it's like to get into quite what is a very competitive industry, and also how to develop their skills and their confidence, which is an important part of being in the media, and how to present themselves professionally. So this lecture will be all based around my personal experience. So hopefully it'll be quite authentic in that sense. So uh, hopefully that would, as I said, it will be quite authentic for you in that sense. Also, I'm a film and TV lecturer at an educational establishment. So I'm also an educator, but also a media professional. So as I mentioned, today's session is all about how people really get into the media industry, what the early stages are and what they're actually like, and what you can do to make yourself uh, much more what we call marketable, and to make sure that you have a realistic expectation of what it's like to be in the media. I've called this reality versus fantasy. So it's based on a realistic session based on my TV experience and not a fantasy one. Okay. They reckon it's estimated that about 1 in 7 students want to go and work in the media. So, as you can imagine, that's quite a competitive field that students are joining, and you can understand why media is seem to be quite a popular thing. And I would say um, there is a bit of a perception that media is quite glamorous, and there are many reasons for that. I think people tend to see media as meeting famous people, red carpets, all of that kind of thing, and they think that it's a job where you're constantly meeting famous people all the time. And I would say there's a little bit of that, but the truth is that it's actually quite stressful as well because it involves deadlines, pressures, problem solving, and there's a lot of unseen work which goes on behind the scenes. The talent is obviously the one that shines, but behind the talent, there's a lot of work that goes on. So what I'm really saying is that the glamorous image often hides the reality of long hours, tight deadlines, and also sometimes when you're starting right at the beginning, it can be quite low paid. So you have to make sure that you're not getting paid too less, but there is quite a lot of hard work behind the scenes. So the glamorous aspect of it is also something that you need to be aware of, because being in the media is also being freelance as well, which is quite a scary thing. Myself, I've been a freelancer for the best part of 20 years. So you're constantly having to reinvent yourself, but just making sure that you're networking all the time to make sure that you know where the opportunities are. And networking is something I'll be talking about in a little bit more detail for you later on. So how do you get in? This is something that is we get asked quite a lot all the time. How do you actually get into the media? Because as I mentioned, it's quite a competitive field. And here are some suggestions based on my own experience that I would put to you. Create your own content. These days, everybody is a content creator. We all have phones and we can all create content within seconds. So simple videos, podcasts, articles, social posts show that you can shoot, you can do edit very simply. And so you have proof of what you can do. A lot of YouTubers, have you've probably noticed, have become very, very popular because they post a lot of stuff onto YouTube, and they've managed to do that because they've become really good at creating their own content. So that is quite a good way to try and get your foot into the door. Another way to do it is to contact local papers, contact small production offices and companies, radio stations, or online platforms, and ask for shadowing placements or even entry level help. All of these are easy ways and quite comfortable ways to try and get your foot into the door. If you apply to your local, do a list of your local TV companies and just write to them. If you are quite smart and not demanding money, the chances are someone will pick you up and maybe offer you a week's work of work experience or something like that. Because that's how I started many years ago. I contacted my local newspaper and said to them that I would love to do film reviews, and they said, yeah. I said, the only thing I would ask you to do is just put my name on the end, and which they did do. But what that did, it created for me the start of my portfolio. So that's something that I would certainly recommend you to do. Another way to get in is apprenticeships, traineeships, and also internships, and try and see if you can get somebody to mentor you. Often, once again, if you are not looking for payment to begin with, but just to build up your portfolio, that's quite a good way to try and get your foot into the door. Another way to do it is to try and go to festival meetups, and also try and see where the networking events are, so you can learn and you can meet up with professionals and you get a bit of an idea of how the industry works. That is a practical way for you to try and get in. So as we've discovered, media is not that glamorous, but it's hard work. There are certain entry routes that you can use, but I have to say, once you get your foothold into the industry, it can be quite an amazing occupation to do. So it is definitely worth doing. And also because now we have lots more channels, we have a lot more platforms. Content creation is something that a lot of employers are looking for all the time. Let's have a look at some of the ways that you can get in. Some of the ways that you can get in is to try and find that there's not just one single route. This is something that you get asked all the time about, what is the best way that you can get into the industry. And one of the ways that I would suggest is that you try and find a route that suits you. Uni does not suit everybody. So that's something that you need to be aware of. If education isn't something that you want to do, then try and find another way to do it. And that might be going into work experience mode. It might be something that you might want to feel that you want to do an apprenticeship, or basically doing freelance work. So there is no sort of single route that is that I would say that is like the golden ticket. It really is about what really suits you. Do you want to spend 3 years doing a media course, or would you prefer to go into the world of work? Either way, it's the best way to do it is whatever suits you. So some people prefer to go into university and get a degree. Some people don't. It's entirely up to you. I think I think what I would say to about that is build up your portfolio. That is the most important thing to do, is to try and get as much experience as you can, because contacts help and networking is even more important. So, what do the early roles look like when you're trying to get your foot into the door? Well, you'd probably start as a runner, and the runner is probably entry level. And then you'd start maybe as a production assistant, and then you probably start as an editor if you wanted to go into the more technical aspect of media, or if you wanted to be what we call a content assistant, where you're trying to where you're making stuff, or if you wanted to do camera or sound, that is something that you could do like that. All of these would be trainee roles. So these jobs are all sort of right at the bottom, junior roles, but they're very, very important in building up the skills, but also helping you to understand how the media industry works. Now, a lot of these jobs will not be glamorous for you, and you might be fetching items, doing paperwork, photocopying, stuff like that. but you're also helping to get a team organized and doing basic production duties. Don't be put off by that, because that actually is a really good way to understand how a film or a TV program works, because what you're doing is you're kind of learning how studios work, how production works, and also what the different roles are for different people on the production. So it might look unimportant, but it is a very important part of understanding how film and TV works. So it means that people will also be looking at you as well. They'll want to see, are you enthusiastic? Are you showing initiative? And are you capable of learning things quickly? So it is, the early roles don't look great, but they are actually really important. This is a question that is often asked. What do employers really want? What do employers look for somebody to try and get their foot into the door? Well, I would say I've listed about half a dozen for you here. The first one is reliability. That is massively important. You have to be reliable. If the call time on a shoot is 4 in the morning, you have to be there at 4 in the morning. I would probably suggest that you get there about 3:45 to make sure that you're there nice and early. Make sure that you are good at communication, because, like most jobs, TV media is all about good communication, letting everybody know what everybody else is doing. You must be what we call a good team player. It's important that you know how to work with other people, and that you're able to be flexible and able to adapt to the different duties and roles that is asked about you. Because teamwork, when you're working, especially on a TV program, if the crew is very small, the teamwork aspect is very, very important. Show loads of initiative. This is really important, especially if you're trying to make your foot in the world of media. Series producers always look at how much initiative you can show. So if you are that kind of person that is always there, ready to help. So if you need to get something quickly, you're there very quickly. Can you always say, well, can I do this? Can I do that? All of these things producers notice, and that is a really good tick for anybody trying to get their way into the world and trying to make an impact on the production. So show initiative. Along with that is, how good are you at willing to learn? So if you don't know something and you're willing to learn, and you show that you're willing to learn and you can do it, obviously, that is a great thing to do as well, because that's what employers look for. They want you to see, is this person somebody that's always ready to have a go and ready to take a challenge? And that's important as well. Make sure that you're professional. This is really important as well, because you're in a professional environment, you're working with professional people, so therefore you have to be professional, and your attitude goes a really long way in showing what kind of person you are. These are the, what I call the core qualities that employers are looking for again and again. They want people to turn up on time, they want to communicate clearly, work well with others, and also to take feedback, even if that feedback is negative, without falling apart, because rejection is important as well. Your technical ability is important. These days, I think employers are kind of looking more and more for young people who can do lots of different things. They can come up with ideas, they can do the technical aspect of everything, and they can communicate and maybe do a pitch as well. So attitude, professionalism, these are the kinds of things that will really give you a chance in the first place to make an impact, and that is what employers really are looking for. But what are the realities? Well, the realities are that rejection is normal. This is quite an important aspect, because I know a lot of people don't take rejection very well, but that it's a standard part of the industry. And in a way, I would even go to say that rejection is actually good, because what rejection does is it actually builds you up. So therefore, embrace it. If you get a little bit of rejection, it hopefully should fire you up to do even better last time. And the media industry is full of people that will sometimes say no. So it's important that you really are able to deal with that. So rejection is normal, and it is sometimes quite good to you to do that. The reality is, as I mentioned before, entry jobs can be low paid. So just be mindful of that. if you are trying to make your way into the industry, you might want to do the first couple of pieces that you do where you probably won't get paid. But I think after that, you should try and ask whoever's hiring you to give you some kind of payment, because you've got to be very careful that you don't get exploited as well. There's a very fine dividing line between making sure that you get some experience, but also not being exploited. So I think to begin with, it could be quite low paid. And then as you get more and more experience, then I think you should be asking for more money as well. The realities are that work can be freelance or it can be short term. I remember working once, I had a job for a week, which was just the nature of the business. They asked me to do some work, development work for a week, and I did it for a week, and then I moved on. But the good thing about that was they knew who I was, and about 3 or 4 weeks later, they called me back with a longer contract. So the work was on a short term basis, but sometimes what that does is it gives you a foot into the door, which is important to be as well. So the realities also are that the hours can be long or they can be irregular as well. So if you are one of those people that sits and looks at your watch, then you might find it a little bit difficult, because trying to get your foot into the door, hours is not something, or regular hours is not something that's part and parcel of the industries. The hours can be long and they can be irregular as well. So just be mindful of that. That is the realities of trying to get working in the media. They say they will train you, but actually the truth is you often learn on the job. Most of the training for media, once you get your foot into the door, is done on the job. You will learn everything on the job while stuff is going on. Because the truth is, most people will not have the time to spend time with you, uh, showing you how stuff is done, because basically there just never is time to do stuff like that, and also there isn't enough money for somebody to be doing that for you. So you'll probably learn whatever you need to learn on the job. So to be honest with you, the industry is unpredictable. You might find gaps between jobs. Competition obviously is quite fierce, as we all quite know, and there's been a lot of competition for opportunities. And you might be waiting around quite a long time waiting for stuff to happen. So just be mindful of that as you start on your career, stuff might take a little bit of time to do, but that's the reality of it. So you need to make sure that you plan carefully, stay realistic about money, and how you're going to budget and stuff like that. Because sometimes if you haven't got a job and you're trying to get your foot into the door, it might be a few months before you get a job. So it's always a good thing to kind of budget yourself, so you've got money, you've got time, and you've got energy as well. Okay. So how do you stand out? It is quite an important thing, because trying to stand out where there is a lot of competition is quite difficult, and employers are always looking for people who are slightly different. And what by that, I mean, these days, an employer might say, well, what have you been doing? And you might say, I've done a media degree, or I'm studying to do a media degree. Sometimes that is not enough. Employers are looking for somebody to go that extra mile. So what do you need to do in order to stand out? I would suggest that you do a portfolio, and that is really important. It's what we call building up your brand. And that means make a show reel, uh, create your own content, because those are important things. If you want to be an editor, if you want to be a director, if you want to do anything which is technical, you need to show employers that some of the work that you're doing, because they obviously want to see the work that you're doing. So build a portfolio, make sure that you have a show reel as well, so they can see the work that you're doing. So those are the sort of nuts and bolts of how to stand out. And then there's what I call the softer skills. And those are things like where you have to kind of learn how to kind of market yourself. So you need to be active on professional platforms like LinkedIn. LinkedIn is really, really good, because it's where most professional people advertise jobs and opportunities. So it's really important that you have a presence on there, and that you're online. So be active on LinkedIn and maybe some of the Facebook groups where jobs and opportunities are. So another way to stand out is to learn extra skills. By that, I mean, if you are somebody that wants to be, I don't know, a camera person, it might be a good thing also to learn about sound, because if you are able to learn skills about that are not necessarily your own forte, you stand a much better chance of being hired or getting your foot into the door. So try and get as many skills as you can. So if you can shoot, you can edit, you know, a little bit about sound, and maybe, you know, a little bit about editing. That is just a really good way, because employers are looking for people who have more than one skills. So there is no such thing as a perfect candidate, I would say. Just try and do the best that you can to show an employer why they should hire you. So to stand out, build up a portfolio, have a show reel, have examples of your editing, your filming, your writing, any photography that you want to do, or any social media work that you've done. People, employers always remember people, applicants who have initiative. So if you can produce stuff outside of your class, it's a really good thing to do. And then that way you can present yourself professionally online and in person. So those are the kinds of things I would suggest that you do in order to make yourself stand out. Skills. Skills are an important part as well of trying to get your foot into the industry. What are the skills that you need? I've listed about 6 or 7 for you there. These are some of these are what are the technical skills that you need, and some of the what I call the softer skills as well. So things like editing, make sure that you know how to edit. Camera work, make sure that you know your way around a camera and how to shoot, and to shoot professionally. Um, Make sure that your sound is good, it's crisp, and you can hear. So those are the sort of technical bits that you need to do. I think these days a lot of employers are looking for somebody that can do everything. So that technical aspect of it is quite important. And then we have things like writing, researching, and also communication skills. And those are things, what are the softer skills, because if you're able to come up with an idea and you can research it, you can write the script for it, you can cast for it, and then you can shoot it, then the chances are that you're going to be making yourself quite a strong candidate. Try and do all of those. I know it probably sounds like quite a lot, but over time, if you're at uni or on a media course at college, these are the skills that you'll be picking up anyway. And if you can exhibit those skills to a potential employer, it will make you very much employable, and you'll become quite a valuable asset to somebody. So try and make yourself as adaptable as possible. In the industry, they call it 360. And by 360, it means somebody that can do everything. So, as I said, come up with the idea, write the script, then film it, edit it, and then everything else that goes with it. That is quite a good way for you to try and make yourself employable. So, what are some of the common mistakes that people make when trying to make their way into the industry? Uh, I think one of the most important things is don't wait to be discovered. You have to be proactive. Jobs are not going to come to you and land on your lap. You have to go out and seek them. So don't wait to be discovered. Go out, do all the networking that you need to do, because that is the only way that you're going to make an impact. Don't do what I call lazy applications, and by that I mean we all know that AI and using chat gpt or perplexity, we can look at all of those, but I think sometimes if you just get an AI to write your application, I think you're probably not doing yourself any great justice, because the best person to write an application is you. And I think sometimes employers can see through that. So don't do a lazy application. Do something which is you, which is authentic and is indicative of your skill set. Another common mistake is having no examples of work. If you want to be a camera person, or if you want to do editing or whatever, you must have examples of your work. It's no good applying for a job that requires that and then can't show the employer what you can do. So sounds a bit obvious, but you'd be surprised the amount of people who make applications that have no examples of their work. So have examples of your work. Another common mistake is being professional online. I think this is becoming more and more important because these days employers do look at your digital footprint. So don't be that person who's said things or whatever, which then comes back to haunt you at a later time in your professional career. So don't be professional online because that will only come back to haunt you. Never. Another common mistake is ignoring deadlines. Deadlines are a massively important part of media. If you can't hit a deadline, then it probably tells an employer that you're probably not the right person for that job. So it's really important that you don't miss any deadlines. Um, Also, I think assuming one qualification is enough. So I'm not saying that you should have a PhD or go for a doctorate or anything like that, but try and get as many qualifications as you can. And by qualifications, what I mean is try and do as many courses as you can. Screen Skills is a really good website which allows you to access online courses for the industry. And I've done a few myself and I find them really, really useful. So it's really good to have more than one qualification where you've done lots of different courses, which then shows that there's something about you and that you're keen and you're passionate. The next one is quite a big bugbear for me because one of the common mistakes that people who are trying to get a foot into the industry is they do not watch enough content. If you are trying to get your foot into film or TV, you need to watch stuff. And it's important that you do know what's happening. So, as we all know, Traitors was a big thing, Squid Games is a big thing. You need to be aware of what's really in popular culture at the time. And simply just watching a bit of YouTube now and then isn't really a great thing to do. Employers want you to be able to have a really good knowledge of what's around. So, watch content, and not watching enough content is a bit of an own goal. So a lot of people, I think, don't get into the industry because they are what I call passive. They don't build up momentum. Is that they don't really engage fully with the industry. One of the things about getting into the industry is about passion. You need to have that passion. You need to have that passion to show that you watch stuff, and if you get a job and that you can uh, put some of that passion into the job that you're going to be doing. So it's really important that you build up momentum for yourselves. Your journey starts now, really, so build up that journey to make sure by the time you get into the industry knows who you are, the industry notices efforts, and it notices when people do not watch stuff. I can give you a quick example of that. I remember when I was taking on some work experience people for a company that I was working for, and they were university students. And one student came in, and I asked him, I said, "Have you seen any of the content that the company produces?" And he said, "No." He said, "Oh, he didn't have time to do that." Well, as you can imagine, he didn't get the placement, and it was a bit of an own goal to do that. So please always prepare properly and make sure that you watch content. So, what are the different ways that you can explore in order to get your foot into the door? I've listed about 4 or 5 for you here. The first obvious one is the BBC apprenticeships and trainee schemes. These are obviously the golden ticket, but they are quite difficult to get into. So don't be disappointed if you don't make it, because there are literally thousands of people trying to get onto these schemes. ITV do them, Channel 4 do them, Sky do them, they all do them, but they are very, very competitive. So obviously have a go, because if you think you're good enough, you should have a go, but don't be disappointed if you don't make it. So BBC apprenticeships and various training schemes. My bet would be wherever you are, go local. So try your local TV companies because they're local. and they will give you probably a better chance of getting in and knocking on the door. So try your local production companies. Creative access opportunities are also good as well. So look at creative access and see what the opportunities are there. Creative mentor network jobs is another industry standard as well that will help you get you jobs. And another way to get your foot into the door is industry events. For me, this is massive. Networking is something that you have to do as a media professional. Most of my jobs I've ever got in the industry were all through networking and going to and listening to people doing masterclasses and going to various festivals and various workshops and stuff like that. I cannot overemphasize the importance of networking. It is massively important that you network and that you go to these various events to get yourself known. Because if you are a regular network, people know who you are, and often it's not what you know, it's who you know. So it's really important that you do that. Another ways that you can pathways to explore is work experience. Try, ask once you've got your foot into a local production company, you can ask for work experience and see if there are any what we call taster opportunities for you to do that. So try and see if you can get work experience. If you particularly like radio, try and ask some of the community radio stations if you can do some work for them, because they all rely on volunteering and they will help you to try and get some work experience and obviously to build up your skills there. So the list I've just given you have some real entry points out there. As I said, they offer some opportunities, and there's some routes that will give you hopefully experience, confidence, and connections. I've listed a few there for you on the slide sheet for you there as well. So those are the various pathways for you to explore. Okay, right. And finally, I would say often the people who get into the industry are not the ones who shout the loudest, uh, because that's not often the way. The ones that really do get their foot into the door are the ones who keep learning, the ones that keep showing up, and the ones that keep producing work, and they show that they are ready for the next step. The media landscape of film and TV has massively changed, especially TV. At one time, we only had 3 or 4 channels. Now we've got the best part of 300 to 400 channels. So technically, there are more opportunities for young people to get into the media now. So you should be able to take some good positive experience from that. The fact that there are lots more opportunities, but it is talent that opens the door. If you are that person who keeps going, you're the one who keeps learning, keeps showing up, keeps building up the portfolio, keeps building up the brand, then you will be the one that will get your foot into the world, into the door. So my advice would be start the journey early, keep improving, stay professional, be persistent, show employers what you can do, and network. As I keep saying, it's one of the most important aspects of being successful in the media. So once you get all of those, your journey starts, you'll get a foot into the door, and hopefully you'll be able to get in and to make sure that you try and have a career in the media, which will help you along the journey into a professional media career. So there you go. Hopefully that's given you some food for thought of how to try and get into the industry, and also to give you some idea of some of the mistakes that people do make when trying to get their foot into the door. I have also included for you uh, some information which I'll share with you. Uh, these are just some of the websites that you can have a look at and what they actually do. So there's about 6 or 7 for you there. So have a look at those and have a look at those. And I've got some notes for you as well. So there you go. So I hope that's been of some use to you. And I'll see you next time on the next session. Take care and thanks very much.